So today we're here with Jose. He has a super interesting story. He was born and raised in the US and he moved to Mexico with just 1,500 bucks in his pocket and no job. So Jose, how the heck did you do that? Because I know there's a lot of viewers on this channel who don't have a lot of money, who fell on hard times like you do, who want to live a better life in Mexico, but they don't know how and they don't know what kind of budget they can do it on. So how did you stretch that $1,500 and make that work and start making an income in Mexico?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I had survival skills, you know what I mean? And because of those survival skills, that helped, a lot because I wasn't in need of all these comforts that, probably a lot of people are looking out for. So yeah, when I came out here, I only had $1,500 and I had like about a month to figure it out because I was in an Airbnb. And, I just had to see what I was going to do. So with that being said, I would look online, I used the advantage that I spoke Spanish. I wasn't looking for much. And I was able to find a place for like around $150 a month. And
how much stuff did you come here with?
Not much. You know what I mean? Basically, a few bags, you know what I mean? A few suitcases worth of stuff and a few boxes, that I had, my family shipped me, with the remaining stuff. And that's it. I was already living a pretty minimalistic life, when before I came out here. And yeah, you know what I mean? When I came out here, I was able to find that place, you know what I mean? For, $150 a month, everything included except for the light bill. And, with 2 deposits, it was like $450 total that I had to kind of like pony up out of that 1,500. But at least I had a home. I had a place that I could, finally, rest my head without having any worry, and then only have to come up with $150 a month in rent, which again, even if I didn't have any money coming in at the moment, I had about $1,000. I was keeping my cost to a bare minimum. So just in case, anything would arise.
Sure. So that $1,500, that was after you bought a one-way ticket to Mexico and then paid to rent a cheap Airbnb for 1 month. You had $1,500 left. But then after that, 2 months deposit, 2 months deposit, first month's rent, you're down to about $1,000. And still you don't really have an income though. And that money will go fast. So
yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so I did have a little bit of an income. And so that income was actually coming from what I was already doing in LA. So in LA, I was working for Uber, but I couldn't bring my car and do Uber here. And the other thing I was doing is that I would edit videos. I was in Hollywood and I was already, making videos for people and doing all that. So really, I would get clients online. You know what I mean? Where I would just go on Craigslist or, I already had, friends of a friend that needed a video done, whatever. And so I would just do a lot of freelancing work, where I would, edit videos and help people with that. And that was, trickling in enough money. Plus, again, I was doing YouTube. I wasn't making money on YouTube per se from ads and stuff, but I would make, money from, the residuals. I might get a donation here or I might do a Zoom call there, whatever. So slowly but surely, I was able to, just make it because remember, my rent was $150. Let's say my light bill, because the electricity is expensive in Merida due to the air conditioning and other things. Let's say it was like another $100. You know what I mean? That's $250. All the other expenses were paid by the owner of the place that I rented. So I didn't have to worry there. I just had to worry about food, and other expenses, libations, let's say you want to have a drink, whatever. And so that was always kind of enough because basically I would depending on how much I made per month, was depending on, how good I was going to eat that month, and
yeah. Okay, so you had although you didn't have a job per se, you did have a little bit of money coming in from some gigs that you were getting here and there. And you mentioned YouTube. For anyone who doesn't know, his channel is Jose Arteaga Travels. I'll link to that right up here, so you can go check out his channel. But what kind of budget did you have, or like what kind of monthly expenses did you have at first? Because I've said on my channel in the past that if I absolutely had to, if it was a matter of like life or death, I could live in Mexico on $300 a month total, including all expenses, assuming there wasn't some major medical bill that came up. But with my like everyday life, I think I could do it on $300. Well, maybe with a little bit of inflation now, that's $350 or something. But what kind of monthly expenses did you have back in the beginning when you moved here?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't 300, but it was, by the way, you're right. You could make it on that, but it's not going to be easy living. All right. But you could definitely do it. And I know people that do. But no, I think my expenses were more like around the $450 to $500 range. And again, I could just kind of go over it real quick. Again, 150 for rent, 175, give or take, another 100 or 150, depending, again, on the power bill. So that's like, almost 300, 275.
Did you have air conditioning in that first place?
Yeah. But
you couldn't really use it, right?
Well, because it was only in the bedroom. So I only used it to sleep. And then the rest of the time I was sweating to the oldies, so, but let's just say 275 right there. Then Ubers, because you do have to take some Ubers, believe it or not. Because I was actually where I was living, I was living closer to like the touristy area. So I didn't have like, like the fruit vendor, the meat guy, all the things that we kind of take for granted living in the regular neighborhood now. But back then I was more closer to the touristy area. So, I had to take the Uber to the supermarket or whatever. But remember, all those things kind of add up, even though it was a few bucks here and there. Libations, we all have our libations. You know what I mean by that, right? Whether you like to drink or whatever. So, things. So, basically, it kind of, food was the major, component.
Sure.
Let's just say that it's $5 a day. 5 times 30 is like 150 bucks. Yeah. So think about it. 150 in rent, 150 in food. That's 300 right there. And then, the light bill was another 100. And then whatever libations, Uber, that would kind of like sum it up. And sometimes I would keep the budget under $5, for food a day. That's from living out here in Mexico for years now. That's what I've realized. I think food is basically the biggest budget buster for anyone that's trying to keep it, under budget.
And by the way, if you guys don't know, Jose is living in Merida in the state of Yucatan. So that's on the Yucatan Peninsula. And in Merida, it is very hot and humid, especially in the summer. So like if you want to come to Mexico and live on a small budget, I would actually recommend not going to Merida, although it does have a nice expat community and it is a very nice city. There's a lot I love about Merida, but I'm talking like I wouldn't go to Merida if I wanted the lowest budget, because it is probably in the top 25% most expensive cities in Mexico. Generally, bigger cities are a little bit more expensive, but also it's hot there. And like he's saying, you have that electric bill that comes with that. But there's much of Mexico that's in the highlands. So like much of Mexico is between like 5,000 and 8,000 feet of elevation. And given its latitude, it's basically perfect climate year round, like where I'm living in Querétaro. So I have an electric bill that's like $20 every 2 months. It's almost nothing. And many people here, their electric bill is even less because we don't need fans. We don't need air conditioning. We don't need heaters because, well, okay, maybe in January I want a heater. The electric bills are much lower here. But anyway, Jose, a few years have passed since you moved there. So you were living on like $450 a month. To live the same lifestyle now with a little bit of inflation that you were living then, how much money would you need per month now?
I mean, honestly, I would probably just say 600. I've talked about this on my channel, and it's basically the two busters, are food and rent. If you can find a place, which there are plenty of, you just got to look for them, and, maybe, expand your standards, I'm talking to, okay. But yeah, you can find cheap places to rent, and then the food, you got to keep that food budget down, meaning that you got to learn to cook for yourself. You got to cook for yourself a lot, and you got to buy locally. See, the thing is that like in the US, a lot of us, we want to eat healthy and organically and, all that stuff, but that costs a lot of money. But in Mexico, it's the other way around. You know what I mean? In Mexico, it's actually, the more organic and the more, fresh it is, the cheaper it is, because it's just coming from the guy's tree. There's no like,
exactly.
Yeah. And so you get to eat really, really, really good for a minimal budget. So that's the thing. If you go out there and you go to the local markets and the local places, you'll definitely be able to remain on their budget. And what you were saying, when I used to live, I'm originally, again, from Miami. I'm used to the heat. I love the heat. I love the fact that I get to sweat, go to the beach. We're good. But when I was living in the West Coast, I hated it. Even in LA, it was too cold for me. It was the opposite, So yeah, I mean, I left in June. I remember I left LA in June, and it was so cold for me. It was like in the 60s or something like that. And I landed here, and it was like a punch in the face of like hot and humidity. And I was like, I'm home. But again, it's not for everybody,
Yeah. So to find those cheap rentals, what are you doing? Are you going on Google, typing in English homes for rent in Merida? Are you going in the Merida Expats Facebook group and asking people for a home for rent in an expat neighborhood?
No, and the thing is, it's like you got to do it in Spanish, and a lot of people just don't realize that they just go and they do everything in English. I mean, I default, we all do default to English, and you're looking in English. Well, now they're catering to you, and they know that you got a few more bucks, so now they're going to increase the price. So in order to really be able to get the local price, well, you got to search like the locals. That means in Spanish, or even walk around the neighborhoods, and like, oh, I like that place says for rent, in Spanish. Let me call that number, and so on and so forth. And a tip that I like to give people is, if you're not very fluent in Spanish, get somebody to call for you. Get somebody to help you out with those things. There are people that do these services, or you can just get a friend, and that friend can just kind of like, act as that liaison. And then by the time that you're, meeting up with the realtor or whoever's renting it out, it's too late. That's the price, so.
Yeah. So are there any websites or places you go online to recommend to look for more affordable housing?
Yeah. So Viva Anuncios is a good spot. Inmuebles is another good spot. But another thing is also on Facebook, believe it or not. Facebook is really, really good, to find a lot of the local price, because again, you got to go in the Spanish, groups. So whatever place you're moving to, whether it's Merida, Querétaro, whatever, they have groups, and they have a lot of groups in Spanish. In fact, I found this out when I moved to Mexico, but a lot of people use Facebook. Like 75% of the population uses Facebook. And that's like, so people were always asking me, hey, do you use Craigslist? I'm like, no, they don't even know who Craig is, but everybody knows who Zuck is, right? And so everybody out there uses Facebook for everything. Even like the Craigslist aspect of it, meaning you can find a place to rent, find a place to live, find a place to work, and just so many other in betweens. So Facebook, but again, go to the Spanish, kind of like rental groups. And that's, like a really good resource. But yeah, like I was saying, Viva Anuncios, Inmuebles, I think Locando, y Casas, and there's other one called Casas Trovi. But again, just search in Spanish. And use all the technology that we have today in case you don't speak Spanish to help translate.
And something I like to do to find the really cheap rentals is to go on to Facebook Marketplace. And then on Facebook Marketplace, you just change it to the city that you're interested in. And if you're looking for a whole house, you would search Casa en Renta. If you're looking for a room in a house, like let's say you have a really small budget and you want like to live literally as cheap as you can, you might even go cuarto en renta, meaning a room for rent. So maybe you're renting a room in somebody else's house. And like, if you want your rent to be $50 a month, you can do this. You can even find it for less than $50 a month by renting a room in a house. Now, that even applies to some of the most expensive cities in Mexico. You can find a room for rent if you're going in these local Facebook groups or local Facebook marketplace. It is possible, but you, like Jose said, you must be searching in Spanish.
Yeah. And you make a great point, like to keep it under that $300 budget that you were talking about. Yeah, you got to find a $50 room, and maybe someone's house or some extra room that they have. And even in places like Mexico City, because again, I'm surprised by some of the comments I read, online or Facebook, where people are like, oh, what are you kidding me? I live in this part of Mexico City. I'm like 15 minutes away from Roma, and I pay total like $650, for everything. Oh, wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And I've seen it where it's like the room is $50 a month. That includes electricity, gas, water, internet, all of your services, and a place to sleep. So if you want a really low budget, that's one way to do it. But now that you've been grinding for a few years on YouTube, posting videos like crazy. If you guys aren't familiar with his channel, Jose mostly does videos on living in Mexico. A lot of it's focused on coming here and living affordably. Now that you've been grinding for a few years and you have a little bit more income coming in, and you can spend a little bit more money, what's your monthly budget like these days?
Yeah. So the reason my monthly budget's increased is basically because I got married, and that just increases the budget always, no matter what. And so but so my budget's increased, but thank God I'm also with somebody very frugal. But the budget is around $1,000. $1,000, $1,100. 1,200, let's say we have an emergency, we got, life comes up, but really, 1,000. And sometimes, we got rough months, because when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you don't know what's coming in every month, and you can keep it under that. You know what I mean? We can definitely live on 800, maybe even 700 if we had to, but 1,000. You know what I mean? Really, like just to maintain the household and just live a nice, comfortable life, or we can go get tacos whenever we want. We can buy whatever we want at the store. Around 1,000, 1,100. Honestly.
What are you paying in rent these days, and what kind of place do you have?
Okay, so when I first got here, the rent was like, again, the dollar was better. Everything was just different, but it was like around 275. But now with everything that's happened, you know what I mean? With again the dollar, it's around 325. So I paid 325 in rent, and it's a 2-bedroom house, okay, with a huge yard and a huge front yard, front and back. I got a garden in the back. I got a huge kitchen. Christian, she's an artist. She has a huge like office area, for her to a studio, to do her art.
And by the way, your rent in pesos has not changed, correct? It's just
exactly.
it's just the value of the dollar relative to the peso.
Right.
Maybe when you signed your contract, it was 22 pesos to the dollar or 20 pesos to the dollar, and now it's 18 to the dollar.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you have to be careful with if you're moving to another country. A lot of people don't factor that in. They get like a year rental with at their maximum budget, and it never crosses their mind that, hey, the dollar might not always buy this number of pesos, and if the dollar falls in value relative to the peso, your monthly rent is going up because your rent is denominated in pesos, not in dollars.
Yes, and it's especially important for people that are on fixed incomes. There's a lot of people that are fixed incomes, but people like us, or others. Remember, there are a lot of people that are young like us. We got to work, so at least we're okay. We can just make a little bit more money, work a little harder, whatever. But anyone that's on a fixed income, remember, you can't just go get a job out here, bagging groceries, or anything like that. So you need to, account for that, and not just that, but like I think I heard you in one of your videos say, account for emergencies. A lot of people just don't do that. You always got to have, if we have a little extra, that goes in a little savings, for in case anything happens, that kind of stuff. Because, like, for example, I don't have health insurance, but I'm in Mexico. I don't need it. You know what I mean? Like, we had a lot of health issues last year, and we had to pay everything out of pocket, and yet it was fine. You know what I mean? Like, it was going to be more expensive with insurance anyway, in our situation, and we just paid everything out of pocket. But again, thank God for the savings. If we didn't have savings, yeah, you know what I mean? We probably would have been at the public hospital, so.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that, hey, you're an entrepreneur. Like, sometimes you have good months, sometimes you have bad months. I'm in one of those phases right now where I'm like, how the heck am I going to pay my bills? I have a monthly payment I have to make to my ex-business partner to pay off this channel, and I have to pay rent, and I have to pay other bills, and I'm like, how the heck am I going to do this? So I'm just trying to work like crazy, posting as many videos as I can, just trying to keep my head above water this month. So, and that stuff happens. So that's why it's good to live below your means when you can. So Jose, you actually mentioned that you have a garden in your house, and that's something that Maya and I both want in our next house. As a matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, we ordered a solar food dehydrator. It's pretty large, and it's made out of wood, and it was like 1,200 pesos, or probably like $65, and they produce them in Guadalajara. So we're excited to have that arrive in a few days. But growing your own food is one way that you can help stretch your budget here.
Oh yeah, and it's like a Mexican thing. Like, it's a lot of people, grow something, anything. Sometimes it just kind of grows naturally. When we first got here, we just had some orange trees, and I forgot what else. But gradually, with time, we built up the garden, and a lot of trial and error. A lot of error. We finally learned how to grow, and now we got like a bunch of things in the garden. We got tomatoes and pomegranates, and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, on top of that, like I remember when we would travel, like going to Oaxaca, and even there where there's like spaces limited, people still had a way to grow, whether they grew on the roof, they had a little communal garden, or they had like their own little thing. And, it was cool. You would just, like, for example, just needed some herbs, and they would just go to the roof, pick a few herbs and then come back down. And
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your monthly budget is like $1,000, give or take, and you're living in a good sized 2-bedroom house. I know you've mentioned in your videos that it's in a very Mexican neighborhood, but what's your lifestyle like? Like, how many times a week are you going out to eat? Are you doing any kind of entertainment, like going out to movie theaters, going to the beach, or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. So that monthly budget includes all of that. So again, depending on how much I, have per month will depend on how much fun things we can do or save. But yeah, that includes that. Like every week, okay, so every week we tend to make it like a ritual or a thing, where we go on a date night at least once, And
Mhm.
so yeah, Friday, Saturday night we like to go on date night, but that doesn't cost much. That's going to cost us like 300 pesos total. Same thing as like, for example, one night, I'm working late, she's working late, we didn't get to make dinner. It's okay. We'll walk over, to the guy that sells tacos a few blocks from the house. We'll just have our tacos there and then come back home and things like that. So really, we try to, cook as much as we can at home, and we try to keep it, like that as much as possible, simply because it's not just a budget thing, but also, we realize that even if we go out to eat every night, eventually your belly, can't, you know what I'm saying? You can't just eat out every night, no matter what country you're in. You got to have some home cooked meals every once in a while. So yeah, we go out to the movies, when applicable. We'll go bowling with friends, we'll go drinking with friends, whether we go out to a bar and maybe, that night, okay, we're going to spend, maybe $50, or $60, maybe because, hey, we're going to, buy a lot of drinks. But yeah, you know what I mean? It includes, in fact, I'd like to really say a lot that my life has, and my quality of life has definitely increased a lot more. Because again, I was in LA and I was going to go get some drinks with a friend. It was probably like one drink. We'd probably go to 7-Eleven, pound a few, and then go out to the bar, to
Yeah.
pay for that one drink that we were nursing the whole night. And, all that was going to cost us like $100 to out here, like all the time. You know what I mean? You get to have an amazing life. Sometimes we have zero budget. We just say, hey, let's just go to El Centro to like walk around and go to the park,
Mhm.
or go, take Gizmo for a walk.
You mentioned going on date nights, and that might be 300 pesos total. So what does that date night look like?
Oh, yeah, great. Okay, so for example, one of the things that we like to do is go to like one of the local parks. You know how in Mexico they got some of the bigger parks, and then they have all the fruit vendors. I mean, sorry, all the food vendors. All the kid rides and all those things. So we just go to one of those. It's free to get in,
Mhm.
and then yeah, we just walk around and enjoy the festivities. And also, like, date night doesn't have to be much. It's just really spending time with, your significant other, and just walking around, holding hands, having a conversation, waiting in line to get our elotes, esquites, the corn on the cob, with the
Uh-huh.
mayonnaise and all that good stuff. We go get that. We go to the other stand and we get some tacos, or maybe we get some tortas, or we get some, ice cream or maquesitas, all these things. And just make a night of it. You know what I mean? The fact that, we're going to go out to eat, but like, this forces us to, put our phones down, spend time together, get out of the house, do all these things, and, you back when I didn't have a car, I would just Uber there. Now I
Mhm.
have the truck. And so now we just, take the truck. So I always, incur that into the, what I'm going to spend, because it spends a lot of gas. But other than that, like really, it's just that sometimes we just go for a drive. Sometimes, like I said, we just, take a walk. Date night is simple. You know what I mean? Like honestly, you know what I mean? Like the
Mhm.
only time we go to the movies because we might want to see a movie. But you're watching a movie, you're not really talking or anything. So when we go on date nights, it's that, you know what I mean? It's just to spend more quality time together. And that's the thing.
Mhm.
In Mexico, a lot of people, a lot of families, a lot of couples, that's just a normal thing to do. Like you notice it, you see it everywhere. I'm sure
Uh-huh.
even in Querétaro, right? Yeah.
Mhm. And by the way, if you guys don't know, Merida is a fairly large city. I think the population is in excess of 1 million. So you have your modern shopping malls. You have as fancy of restaurants as you could imagine, and things like Costco you have there as well. But also about a 30-minute drive from Merida, you can arrive to the beach in Progreso and the various beach towns along there. Do you ever go to the beach?
Oh
Do you go to the
yeah,
beach
yeah,
much?
all the time. Yeah, so like for example, when I used to live closer to El Centro, at the other home, well, basically we would walk out of the house like not even half a block, and the bus, the Auto Progreso, the one that takes you straight to the beach,
Uh-huh.
would pass by there. So yeah, so again, even when I had zero budget, my budget was like nothing, and I was dating, and we were just doing this small dates.
Mhm.
Yeah, we could still go to the beach on a very minimal budget, and so the bus was 25 pesos, and I think it's around the same, maybe a little more, 30 pesos, whatever. But 25 pesos per person. How much is that?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, come on. And like a dollar, right? $1.50 per person or something like that. Yeah. And so that's the ticket, to get to the beach, and then $1.50 to get back. And then again, we couldn't afford a lot, so we would just do a little mini picnic. We would go to the OXXO, we go to the 7-Eleven, whatever, or any little grocery store, or any fruteria, and just buy some fruits. Maybe bring a little cutting board. Have a little knife, a little picnic on the beach, whatever. Things like that. And just make it happen. And yeah, it's amazing because again, you spend the whole day at the beach. For very, very, very little. And not just the beach. You can go to cenotes out here, which is like those underground watering holes. They've got waterfalls.
They're beautiful.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. Basically you take, instead of taking the big bus, you take like the small bus, what do you call the combis? Yeah. And you take the little combi, and just like with all you Mexicans, you get in a tight little van, and then you're riding out to these places, and then it's the same thing. Now it helps a lot that I'm with Christian. She's a local, Merida, born and raised out here, so it's a lot easier to kind of maneuver through some of these things, especially going to the villages, with her, because she just leads the way. But anyone can do it. Trust me, we're out there and we see the tourists, doing the same thing. So yeah.
But you mentioned your Mexican wife. So I get comments on this channel. I've been getting comments lately because I've been doing videos about where I would live in Mexico on $1,000 a month, on $1,000 a month budget. What cities would I choose? And I'm getting these comments like, why would you make videos about living in Mexico on $1,000 a month when it takes like $2,700 a month to get legal residency? You need an income of $2,700 a month for residency. But you are a perfect example of someone who came to Mexico, did not qualify for residency in any way. However, what you did is you met a nice Mexican woman and married her, and you got legal residency that way.
Yeah. And again, I'll tell you the story. I've said the story many times before. When I came here, I had no choice. Like really back in the day, things were more strict. And so when they were more strict, I really didn't have a choice. I had just a few choices, to pick from, which was, just leave the country and come back. No big deal. People do that all the time. What is it? The visa runs, but that was expensive, believe it or not, even for me. I had to do that anyway because my visa had expired. I was here for a minute with my expired visa. But anyways, I had to choose to get married because there was no other option for me. I did not qualify, through financial solvency. I'm not going to get a work visa, all these things. I didn't have any options back then. So yeah, basically, I talked to Christian and say, hey, look, I'm in this predicament. Can you help me out? And she's like, yeah, of course. I thought you would never ask, to get married, but we got to do it for real. And I'm like, oh, really? You want to actually get married to me? All right, let's do this. So it really worked out. It was great. But yeah, I got lucky in that sense, where, that's the route I had. But again, there are I had that same option, whether, I was with her or somebody else, but that is an option, believe it or not. And a legal option. Now, the thing is that with the years, as the years have gone on, where we stand today, it's a lot easier, for you to move out here. And just because of, a lot of...
Why do you say that?
Oh, because a lot of the videos that, I've made, I've been interviewing, Jose Novella, which is a lawyer that I interview on the channel a lot. I think you interview, right? Your own lawyer. We do research, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, it's out there. Things have changed. And so now it's not the same, So for example, when you say, hey, I want to move to Mexico, but I don't, and you say $1,000 a month. Yeah, it's great, but I don't qualify financially. It's like, yeah, but it's okay. There's other ways in which you can qualify. Number one, a lot of people asking this. A lot of people that are asking for the $1,000 a month budget are people that are on a fixed income, which are retired. Well, guess what? If you're retired, all you got to do is prove you're retired. You don't got to prove financial solvency. You know what I mean? So a lot of people don't know that, but that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, through the whole pandemic situation that we had, the whole immigration thing has, kind of like been more open. So therefore, if you, I forgot what it's called, the residency program or what have you, but basically every 6 months they are renewing this new program that allows people to, just basically, if you've been living in Mexico and you have a few stamps on your passport because you've, been living in Mexico and you've just been doing visa runs, that qualifies you enough, for you to get your temporary residency.
I think what you're talking about is the regularization program. And basically what that is, well, there was the regularization program before COVID, but during COVID, added something else to it where if you come here, you get like a 180-day permit. Well, if that permit is expired, well, then you can go through this regularization process to get temporary residency without proving any financial requirements. So like Jose said, there are other ways to do it. There's humanitarian visas, there's getting a work permit, there's qualifying via marriage, there's qualifying by having a child in Mexico, even if it isn't to a Mexican citizen. And there's other ways as well. So there's a long list of ways that you can get legal residency without going through the financial route. It's just that the
Correct.
financial route is the most common way people go.
It's the easiest way. What I like to tell people is just a way to buy your way in. I mean, which that's really what it is. It's just proving, hey, I got enough money to buy my way in, which you can do in any country. But again, there's a lot of people out there that are finding out that even through family, I mean, they might have family, or whether it's in the U.S. or in Mexico, and so just through bloodline, they can do it as well. So there's many ways to do it, and the simplest way to do it, which is the way that a lot of people still do it, and the way I was doing it, which is go on visa runs. You can live in Mexico on a tourist visa perpetually because that's the way that the law are kind of set up. So if that's the only visa you can get, well, that's the only visa you're allowed to be here in, but it's not, doesn't mean you're here illegally, or it doesn't mean that you can't, rent a place or live here or any of those things. It means that you can't open up a bank account. It means that you can't, do certain things that you would be able to do with a temporary residency, but that's it. You know what I mean? I'm glad you're bringing this up because there is a lot of fear mongering out there, and there's no reason to have fear mongering. Again, there's other countries out there like where, Southeast Asia, where they're very, very strict. Okay. And they are deporting people and they're doing things like that. And people still go out there, no problem. And they're not, they're not complaining. So why here, Mexico, that is such a strong partner to the USA and Canada. And you know what I mean? Like, again, Mexico wants Americans and Canadians out here. So why,
And Mexico did go through a phase, like I think it was last year, that they started cracking down on people who were doing these 180-day border runs. However, it seems that they've since relaxed that because it's been causing a lot of problems that they didn't foresee, and it seems like they've more so gone back to how it was. But I would say if you can get residency, if you can qualify for in one of the many ways, do it. But as of right now, you can do the 180-day border runs, and that is perfectly legal. So you came out here with not much money and no official job. You had a few side gigs that you were doing, but what other ways have you seen people making money? Like foreigners who want to come here. There's a lot of people who want to come here, but they're like, I don't know how I'm going to make a living. Sure, there's a lot of people who do like digital nomad stuff. Sometimes people can find a remote job, especially after COVID. There's more remote jobs available where they can work for a US company working from anywhere. But what else can you do for an income?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because a lot of people have that, they don't know how to make income, and the whole digital space is not for them. Well, the reality is that you can just start your own business out here. That's it. It's as simple as that. And now here, you are encouraged to become an entrepreneur. Now, again, you can't do this on a tourist visa, all right? But once you get your temporary residency and above, you can definitely do this. And you don't need to go and start up like a, like have a brick and mortar, place. You can literally start it out of your own house. I know plenty of expats out here that do all kinds of things out of their house, whether they, they're cooking food and selling it to other expats or the Mexican community, or, they sell flowers and cactuses and, all kinds of things like that. And just so many other things, basically whatever it is that you do that you're good at, it translates well to here. Because again, as you know, from living in Mexico, everything is done in the neighborhood. So for example, I got this pair of pants that I'm wearing now that I just ripped a hole in earlier today. So now I got to take it to the tailor that's a few blocks, from my house, and she's going to fix it up for me for, a few pesos. And just like, all these places around the neighborhood, they all do something different. Well, you can offer something different as well to, your neighbors, your neighborhood, and whatever it is. I mean, seriously, it could be guitar lessons. It could be starting up a sandwich place. It could be, anything. And
yeah, exactly. That's what I'd do. I would start with what I like to do, what I was good at. So, for example, I've seen people who moved here and they started working as massage therapists because that's what they were doing where they came from, or working with Reiki or as a chiropractor or some other gig where you can do it from any location, things like that. Also, someone who's a good baker who makes good gluten-free products. They start baking stuff and selling it at the local Tuesday market or the Saturday market or whatever it is in your city. A lot of these cities have an organic market, sometimes various organic markets on various days of the week.
Yeah, yeah, and it's another great point. Like there's a lot of skills that once you come to Mexico, you're like, man, why come they don't have this? How come this mechanic can't do this, or how come that guy can't? So all of a sudden, you have those skills, and you can translate that out here and be like, well, wait a minute, I know how to do this type of work, and I speak English on top of that. So
Mm-hmm.
and just things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. Again, Mexico's a booming economy. It's only going to keep booming, and there's a huge relationship with Mexico and the U.S. And whatever it is you bring from the U.S., whatever custom, whatever anything, they're going to love it out here. And that's the thing. Just start bringing it out here. Just like when we're in the U.S. and we love all the Mexican stuff. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. So there's seriously endless options of ways you can make money. Just start with what you're good at and what you like to do.
yeah, and again, remember, you don't need much to survive. You can keep it as low as $300 a month, so or 400, but still, not
Mm-hmm.
much, and you can make it happen. But that's the thing. That's another thing too. I wanted to let people know is that you gotta want to make it happen. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, it's just gonna happen and fall from the sky. No. And so, for example, when I came out here originally, I wasn't even thinking about visas or residency or legality or anything like that. I was
Yeah.
just like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta find a place to land. I gotta find a home. I'll figure it out when I get there. And if you have that kind of mentality, you'll be fine. Trust me, you'll be fine. But when a lot of people, they second guess, third guess themselves. They read 100 books, watch 100 videos, but they never make that final step. They never actually make it happen because they're always finding an excuse or scared or what have you. And that's the thing. And the most difficult thing at the end of the day is taking that first step. And then, everything else is easy.
And you were telling me off camera that you were living in LA and you had fallen on hard times. And it was like, okay, I'm either sleeping on the street, I'm sleeping in my car, or I got to do something else. So you came to Mexico and you were living on like $450 a month, and you were grinding every day, making YouTube videos, and eventually a little bit of money started coming in. And now a few years later, you're living a very comfortable life. You're still not spending a ton of money, but it's a very comfortable life. And there's a lot of people, a lot of Americans and Canadians living here in a similar way where they're living very comfortably on not a whole lot of money. So I think that's a really great option for a lot of people who are coming from abroad.
Yeah, exactly. If you live frugally, if you're already kind of like living in that minimalistic lifestyle, if what's important to you are things like freedom, quality of life, and so on and so forth, then yeah, you'll definitely be able to make it out here. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that, they want different things out of life, and then they come out here, and that's that culture shock that we've talked about many times where people just end up going back home.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, a lot of people like you, me, and others out there, we come here and we fall in love with Mexico. It's like, where have you been my whole life? And the rest is history. Yeah.
So Jose, can you tell them about what you do? Like, how can you help with people who are interested in coming to Mexico, interested in either visiting Mexico, living in Mexico, and whatnot?
Yeah. So besides, all the videos that I provide and, all the content that I make, just like you, I also provide people with, hands-on help, in case people need hands-on help moving to Mexico. I do Zoom calls, one-on-one consultations. On top of that, I do have like a team of people, basically to help out whoever, whether you need some translation services or lawyer services or, helping, the final steps to find a place. Whatever, I can help you out. Again, I have a website and just a tons of free resources for anyone out there to access. And if they want to access directly to me and have a conversation with me about anything, all the information is there on my website, on my YouTube page, and all that good stuff.
If you found this video helpful, if you like Jose's story. If you want to learn more, go check out his channel. It's Jose Arteaga Travels. Let's get him to 10,000 subscribers ASAP. He's been grinding like crazy. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen, and he's at like 9,000 right now. So I know if some of you go over there and subscribe, we can get him to 10,000 pretty quickly. And if you like videos like this, subscribe to Tangerine Travels as well, because I'll be making more like it. And click on this video on the screen here. It's what I think are some of the best places to live in Mexico on $1,000 a month budget. And in that video, I give you a ton of tips on how to find really cheap rentals. So go check out that video, and I'll see you over there.